This is the new Alienware Area-51, and no, we didn't film a government black site. We're here in the studio to review a PC pre-built of the same name. Now, will our encounter with this PC be cosmically good or leave us wishing we did a Naruto run away from it? We're going to talk about all that and more right here, right now on Robeytech, after a word from our sponsors, us. This video is brought to you by our official Robeytech build mat. If you've been watching the channel for a while, you'll probably recognize it. We love these things. They're super thick and durable, and they're absolutely huge in size, measuring at 5.5 millimeters thick and 24 by 48 inches wide. This one that we have right here, man, this has been in the studio for like 4 years, and it's still holding up great, no problem. We've also included all sorts of useful graphics showing different PC form factor sizes, including schematic diagrams and connectors you'll encounter probably during your PC build. Not to mention, there's plenty of open space for screw and tool organization. We designed it like this so no matter what skill level of builder you are, it could be a helpful tool for pretty much everyone. Now, you can find these build mats for sale on our Newegg store, and it's a great way to support us directly if you enjoy the content we make. Thank you so much for your support, and let's get back to the video. Probing questions aside, if you've been around the PC gaming space, I don't know if there's a more recognizable brand out there than Alienware. Their branding and case designs have been just as alien in the PC space as they are recognizable. From those Dodge neon green desktops to those ones that look like a bloated cyber Dorito, these things are statement pieces. So when we were offered the opportunity to check out the latest iteration of their Area-51 desktop PC, of course we said yes, and it wasn't just because we love tech. Alienware was pretty eager to share that this model of the Area-51 is more accessible for PC DIY guys to upgrade along the way. How easy is it to do that, and with the hardware inside, will you actually need to? We're going to talk about that all along the way, and we're going to take the long way to get there. So grab a coffee and a comfy seat because we're going to be here for a little bit. Before we dive in, we want to thank Alienware for sending us the 2025 Area-51 so we can give it the Robeytech review treatment. Let's get to know the Area-51, starting with how much space it will occupy on your desktop. The 2025 Area-51 measures a little over 9 inches or 232 millimeters wide, 24 inches or about 611 millimeters deep, and right between 22 and 23 inches or 569 millimeters tall. For comparison, the Area-51's chassis is about as tall as the Corsair 7000D while having slightly less depth than the Asus ROG Hyperion. In other words, this is a big case. And thanks to the brushed aluminum exterior and tempered glass side panels, this thing is no featherweight either. Weighing in at just over 76 pounds or 34.5 kilograms, the Area-51 weighs as much as 25 average size ferrets or an inflated bouncy house. But whether using the Area-51 is more fun than 25 average size ferrets inside of an inflated bouncy house is still yet to be determined. Because the Alienware Area-51 is a highly customizable PC, at the time of this video it had a price range from around $3,300 all the way up to $6,710. The configuration we're testing is on the higher end of that spectrum with a retail price of around $5,700, which is no small amount of money. So what does that get you, and what are your options here? For CPU, the Area-51 has 4 options, starting with the Intel Core Ultra 265 all the way up to the Core Ultra 9 285K. Our test rig is equipped with the 285K. Now, if you saw our video on Intel's 200S boost for Core Ultra, which you can actually watch right here, we didn't find a setting for it in the BIOS, but we asked Alienware. They did say something cheeky like, we can neither confirm nor deny future upgrades and plans, but why wouldn't we do something to improve performance? I guess we're just gonna have to wait and see if we end up with a BIOS update. Since we're also in the neighborhood, it's also worth noting that this is socketed into a proprietary Z890 motherboard. Using a proprietary motherboard isn't uncommon for Alienware, but we'll get into this a little bit more when we talk about the DIY elements of the Area-51. For connection on rear I/O of the motherboard, Alienware gives users a moderate number of ports here, including enough USB Type-A, Type-C, and Thunderbolt 4 ports. And if that wasn't enough, the case itself has 2 more USB Type-A ports and 2 more USB Type-C ports, as well as an additional mic and headphone jack. As for GPU options, the Area-51 comes with an RTX 5070, RTX 5080, or RTX 5090. As you can probably guess from the price of our system, this one is equipped with an RTX 5090, and in case you're still keeping tabs on the price, it is still possible to spend $1,000 more even with a 5090 build. One thing that we want to point out here is that the chassis can support GPU lengths of up to 450 millimeters. Not only that, the Area-51 has a sliding GPU support bracket, so whether it's a 50 series GPU today or an even bigger GPU in the future, there's some room to grow here, so long as your GPU uses 16-pin power connectors. Now, before we get too far here, we haven't talked about CPU cooling yet, but this talk about power connectors is actually a relevant bridge here. The Area-51 options for CPU cooling are tied to power supply options within the configurator. There are 4 options here that pair either a 240mm or 360mm AIO with an 850 watt or 1500 watt PSU, which is a pretty wide leap for PSUs. Now, we have to point out here that the PSU is pretty limited as far as extra connections go. Alienware has made the choice to go with an ATX 12VO power supply, which is a different design for delivering power to a motherboard than a standard ATX 3.1 PSU. On the plus side, it does have a second 16-pin connector in case you need a second GPU or in case your GPU just requires that much juice. No extra 8-pin connections here though. In case you're wondering, our system is using the 1500 watt PSU with a 360mm AIO configuration. But there is more going on inside the Area-51 for cooling beyond the AIO. And this is a big deal because according to Alienware, making sure the Area-51's chassis was both thermally and acoustically sound was a big priority. To achieve this, the chassis is equipped with a total of 7 fans inside, and they aren't small fans either. There are 2 140mm fans at the case bottom, 2 180mm fans at the case front, and 3 120mm fans at the case top with the radiators. It's also worth noting that all these fans are set to intake to create a positive pressure scenario inside the chassis. Basically, it's pulling air in and pushing hot air out the backside. Now let's move on to RAM. Alienware offers 2 options here, either 32 or 64 gigs, with both options running at 6400 megatransfer. Not much in the way of option here, but that's not a bad thing, and it's the ideal speed for Intel's Core Ultra processors. For our test rig, we have 64 gigs inside. If you do want more options, there is a ton when it comes to storage. The Area-51 has configurations starting with a single 1TB PCI Gen 4 NVMe drive and scales all the way up to ones using 2 4TB PCI Gen 4 drives. And if you need more speed, Alienware has configurations using a 2TB Gen 5 drive as well. Now, if you're keeping track at home, our Area-51 is equipped with a 2TB PCI Gen 4 drive. One other comment here. We did see that the folks over at Gamers Nexus had a bent drive in the Area-51 system they tested. We did check our system and we didn't have that same issue. And with that, you now have a full picture of what's inside of this Area-51 and a bit about how it works. But what do the numbers tell us and how well does it actually perform? So we're going to break it down into a couple different parts because when it comes to your desktop PC, each of you is going to value something more than others. Some of this might be relevant to you and some of this might not be, and that's completely okay. Also, we want to be absolutely transparent here that Alienware was very aware that this machine was going to come directly to us. So that's just something else to keep in mind as you're looking at the data. We don't know if this is a certified golden sample of machine or if this literally is the off-the-shelf experience that anyone will have with an Area-51. We just want to acknowledge this up front because your mileage could vary if this was actually cherry-picked. Now with all of that out in the air, let's start by looking at CPU performance with Cinebench. When we're looking at the multi-core score, the Area-51's 285K gave us an average score of 40,516. As for single core, the Area-51 landed at an average of 2268. Considering that these averages fall within 2% of our highest average for the current desktop Core Ultra 9, I'd say that the Area-51 isn't looking too shabby here. But how does that translate into creator applications? Well, I'm glad you asked because here we see the Area-51 throw down an average of 16,493 in Adobe Premiere, 15,972 in After Effects, and 9510 in Photoshop. So we're looking at a machine that is more than capable of crushing creative workloads. And that shouldn't come as a surprise if you're getting this kind of hardware inside of your PC. It had better be more than sufficient for whatever task you're throwing at it, even those daily grind tasks. So let's look at gaming metrics across 10 games, starting with native performance at 1440p without the use of frame generation and upscaling. Starting with games like Cyberpunk 2077, Black Myth Wukong, and Space Marine 2, the Area-51 kicks out averages in the 90 to 100 FPS range. Hogwarts Legacy hops over the 100 frames per second line at 104, while Forza Horizon 5, Indiana Jones, and Starfield all flirt with the idea of averaging 200 FPS. Meanwhile, Star Wars Outlaws did struggle with an average just below 53 frames per second without upscaling. Keep in mind that these numbers do reflect the use of ray tracing whenever possible, so these are definitely not optimized numbers here. On the flip side, when we optimized for multiplayer games, Marvel Rivals and Fortnite showed much higher averages at competitive settings. When we enable DLSS, we see some bumps in our performance in most of our titles, while others did not see as much of an uplift. We did retest multiple times to validate what we were actually seeing, and you know what guys, this may just be one of those weird things that happens with game updates, driver changes, limitations within game engines, or an arrangement of the tea leaves on that day. But overall, with DLSS enabled, we saw performance near or over 100 FPS in most of our tested titles, and hey, even Star Wars Outlaws joined the party. And finally, when we enable frame generation and multi-frame generations, it's onward and upward across the board. Out of the 9 titles here, at the low end, Black Myth Wukong averaged 189 FPS with 2 times frame generation on, and at the high end, we saw over 718 average in Marvel Rivals. titles. Now, if you're seeing these numbers and you're yelling, Roby, this is a 4K capable system, why are you testing 1440p and not 4K? Well, if that's you, that's a great question. And you know what? We did. We're gonna throw those numbers on screen while you listen to my soothing voice. Why lead with 1440p? Well, if you look at the Steam hardware survey, gamers are 4 times more likely to be gaming at 1440p than 4K. And on top of that, the hardware just lasts a whole lot longer. So we wanted to give you a more in-depth first in terms of starting with that number. Now, like our 1440p numbers, you will see places where the system seems like it's struggling. But again, remember that we're showing natively rendered ray tracing here with our single player cinematic benchmarks. Overall, we did see improvements when we start layering in things like DLSS, as well as frame generation, and of course, multi-frame generation. Now, like I said earlier, we tested and retested to make sure that these numbers were in line with our original testing of the RTX 5090. Now, if you watch this and our 5090 review back to back, the results won't be 100% identical. There have been a bunch of games, drivers, system, and BIOS updates in the past 6 months. So yeah, things are gonna look just a little bit different. And this is part of the joy of testing, kids. We're building in sandboxes, not on cement. So with all that in mind, what about thermal performance? At idle, the Area-51 sat at around 40 degrees Celsius, which is a bit on the warmer side for idle, but also not anything troubling. The same can be said for the temperature under load. During our CPU load test, the Area-51 held average CPU temperature of 87 degrees Celsius. Is that a high temperature? Yes. But there are a couple things to keep in mind here. Thing number one is that even with the system averaging 87 degrees under load, that's still a far distance from the Core Ultra 9's 105 degree thermal max. And thing number two, these are extreme conditions that most users are not going to be hitting. The Area-51 held an average of 57 degrees Celsius while gaming, which is probably the more likely scenario this system will be used under. And if you watch any of our AIO videos, like the new Lian Li HydroShift 2 video, which you can check out right here, you'll notice that even inside a test bench set up as the optimal environment for cooling, these temps are not uncommon. Moving on to wattage, the Area-51 CPU held power averages over 231 watts under load, which interestingly is a higher average than we saw when testing the 285K for our CPU roundup a few months back. But we could be looking at different BIOS settings here. That being said, seeing where the power averages land is encouraging. As for GPU temps, the Area-51 RTX 5090 rested at 43 degrees while idle. As for load testing, it only averaged 67 degrees Celsius. So all in all, this thing is like the tilt of the Earth's axis. It's balanced enough to support life, or at least the life of the system. Speaking of the life of the system, remember that we said at the top of this video that Alienware redesigned the Area-51 with PC DIYers in mind? Well, if you noticed in our B-roll, there are QR codes all over this machine, and those QR codes lead to videos explaining the process of how to upgrade or maintain these parts. And these videos actually put the tinkering aspects into very down-to-earth explanations. But you should know that not every upgrade is going to be plug and play. Take a motherboard replacement, for example. Remember, the Area-51 is using the ATX 12VO PSU, not an ATX 3.1 PSU. So if you want or need to change the motherboard, you're going to need to swap the power supply as well. This applies to the PSU. If you can't find another ATX 12VO PSU, if you do need to replace it or upgrade it with an ATX 3.1 power supply, you're going to actually need to replace the motherboard as well. And if AMD or Intel surprises with the GPU to best the RTX 5090, but they're still using 8-pin connectors, you're going to be disappointed here as there are no 8-pin connectors in sight. But let's say you want to swap out CPUs and you want the Area-51 to run on Ryzen. Well, at the moment, there isn't a conversion kit for the AIO. Similarly though, while the stock AIO works with Intel Core Ultra 200S processors, it's hard to say how much longer Intel is planning on supporting LGA 1851 or if the next Intel socket will support the same coolers at all. Now, I know that all this makes you wonder if the Area-51 is PC DIY friendly at all, and if that's you, don't worry. We're planning on doing a full teardown of the Area-51 to rebuild it with our own components, so make sure you stick around for that video and let us know in the comments what kind of parts we should slap inside of it. Now, while you're doing that, some of you are probably wondering about the same things we are about customization. How does this all impact the warranty? We actually went directly to the source here because on the initial read, it sounded like Alienware's limited hardware warranty coverage wasn't very PC DIY friendly, which, on the other hand, understandably so, they shouldn't have to cover parts that they didn't provide. However, Alienware confirmed that first-party parts are still covered after user DIY upgrades, and that adding or swapping components will not void the warranty for the components that came with the system. As for warranty coverage itself, the Area-51 comes standard with 1 year of Alienware care. This includes 24/7 hardware and software support, on-location repairs if needed, assistance with file backup, Alienware's health check dashboard, and AI-assisted hardware failure protection. Alienware does provide an option to add accidental damage to this warranty for around $100, but if you wanted to bump up the level of care to the Alienware Elite Care program, you You can do that for around $120. The Elite Care program includes everything from Alienware's Care program, plus accidental damage protection, extended battery support for laptops, which really doesn't matter here, and as Alienware says, access to top-tier gaming support experts. Not sure if the last feature is one to help players get good or to help them tune their games for the best performance for their hardware, but we're guessing it's probably the latter. All right, we covered a lot of ground and we need to wrap this video up with a couple of questions in closing. Do we recommend the 2025 Alienware Area-51, and if so, for what kind of use? The Alienware Area-51 has a pretty broad range of customization options that makes it viable for a number of different users, and its pricing is just as broad, ranging from over $3,000 to over $6,000. With this price, the Area-51 falls into the upper echelon of pre-built systems, and when you look at the sum of the parts, sure, you could build a cheaper and nearly identical system, but remember, everything in this thing, from the motherboard to the PSU to the cooling to the actual chassis, everything in the system is designed to work together while still providing a platform for upgrades down the road. Not only that, the RGB is also tailored to react to the games, so that's a bonus. I don't know if it's that big of a bonus, but there is a bonus there. That being said, can you build a comparable system for cheaper or find an equally spec pre-built system? Yes, and you could be saving $500 or more, but only you can decide if the advantages and disadvantages of Alienware's boutique approach would make you love it more to justify spending that kind of extra money, or make you love it less and push you into the arms of another PC builder. We can go either way. Overall, there is actually a lot to love about the Area-51. The strides it makes to become more PC DIY friendly are admirable, and with a beautiful aesthetic and curated design that is about as functional as it is pretty. Alienware almost knocked it out of the park with this one. Almost. Listen, Alienware, we mean it when we say you made some good steps here. We love the extra step you took to design everything in the system, but there are some choices you made that subtract from the end goal. The first is cable management, and I'm not even talking about the back of the Area-51. I'm talking about the front. I know we're sticklers for clean builds around here, but at this price point, visible cable runs should be minimal. I think the thing that gets me is that this is your design in your PC case. You aren't bound by anyone else's design. While we appreciate the care of cutting your cables to the precise lengths needed for your motherboard, adding different pass-throughs to make cables less visible would have been a good strategy here. Speaking of back, since you designed your own motherboard, why not make it back connect? We understand that there are challenges, but the good news here is that the roadmap is already in place. And while you're talking about designing your own stuff here, Alienware, please hear me out. If one of the goals with the Area-51 was to make a PC DIY friendly desktop, please use standard power supplies, motherboards, and connectors. I know that tailoring components for your PC is something you're proud of. And again, you have a lot to be proud of with this machine, but the educated gamble in the direction of the industry with the ATX 12VO power supply is more of a hindrance to the PC DIY goal than an actual help. I know it sounds like we're swinging a bat at you, Alienware, but understand we actually want to see you succeed at what you're doing. We see the vision, but we think it needs a little bit more time in the oven. Look at what companies like Falcon Northwest are doing. We think you have the capacity to hit that kind of high bar, but there's some work to be done. For Alienware, I hope that was more constructive than overly critical, but we want to know what you think of Area-51 for you, the viewer. If you like the Alienware aesthetic, this thing runs well, it looks awesome with its design and RGB accents, it stays relatively cool during normal use, and it still has some headroom under load. If you like the vibe, but you also like to tinker, our complete recommendation is yet to come on this one. And if none of this sounds appealing to you, there are plenty of pre-built PC options out there in the cosmos waiting, and they are watching. And if Alienware, you're watching, you're so close. Take the critique and improve what you're doing. It's an awesome direction, and I'm excited to see V2 of this. And with that, we're gonna wrap up our review of the 2025 Alienware Area-51 desktop PC, but we wanna know what you think. What do you think about the overall design, and do you like the DIY aspects that Alienware is trying to integrate into the Area-51? And if you're going to buy this as a foundation for upgrades, what kind of hardware would you actually put inside of it? Let us know all that down in the comments below. Now, while you're down there, go ahead and slap that subscribe button, whip that like button, and ring the notification bell so that you get a notification each and every time we post a video like this, either here at Robeytech or over at Robeytech Live. And if you want to continue the conversation, talk about the questions we asked in this video, or ask questions of your own, head over to our Discord server, discord.gg/Robeytech. It's an amazing place to meet other tech and PC enthusiasts and talk about stuff just like this. And you know what? You might just make a friend. Also, make sure you follow us at Robeytech on all your favorite social media platforms. And if you made it this far, I want to say a huge thank you for sticking with me throughout this video, and I look forward to seeing you on the next one.